Welcome to Great Shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Racquets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On today's show, we've got a special ITA Men's National Indoor Preview edition of The Deciding Point, our weekly breakdown of everything that happens across the Division I men's college tennis world. Of course, coming up this weekend, a weekend that could be argued to be day for day the most jam-packed weekend of action on the college tennis schedule. We've got our ITA Division I Men's National Indoor Championship. 16 of the best teams in the country, all traveling to Chicago, Illinois for the right to be crowned the National Indoor Champion. Of course, tonight on our stream, I'm rocking that University of Illinois hat in honor of our hosts. Appreciate all the efforts made by Brad Dancer and the University of Illinois program in putting on this year's event. Of course, we're going to have coverage from first ball to last of all the action on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. The play begins Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time. We'll have coverage all the way through Monday's championship match. Of course, before we get to any of that action, we got to preview all 8 of our thrilling round of 16 battles. And joining me on the podcast, as he does each and every week to do just that, is a man you know best as the forefather of the college tennis ranks formula predictions, never far from the listed UTR, one of the many dames to root for the Liberty Flames, and now the lean, mean vegan machine. It's our friend Chris Halioris. Chris, hey. Great shot. Welcome back to the show. That weekend is finally upon us. You ready to roll the balls out, find out who's good, who's not?
I think we know who's good, who's not, but absolutely. Let's get going. The best early weekend of the year for sure. After kickoff weekend comes the indoors. So, yeah, let's get going.
Yeah, the best part, of course, is you're guaranteed top 16 battles for 3 consecutive days. Unlike the NCAAs, you do have those consolation matches. And so, again, every battle matters. Obviously, this weekend, critical for the rankings moving forward. And yeah, let's find out who are the best teams. We've all done a lot of speculating, but they're all going to be in one location. Like I said, let's roll the balls out, find out who's good, who's not. With all of that in mind, our plan for today's show, we're going to preview each of the round of 16 battles. We're going to make the case for each team. What are the match calculi to get to 4 points? We'll also talk about our most intriguing individual matchup in each of these round of 16 affairs as well. Of course, at the end, I will ask Chris for his prediction. Who's going to take home the title? We'll get into all of that and so much more, break down the lineups. We've got a jam-packed edition of the show for all of you listeners. Of course, the reason we're able to do this week in, week out here on The Deciding Point is because of the support we get from our sponsors. And Chris, this is the second time I'll let you know I've worn this Ellesse polo on episode of The Deciding Point. You have that exact same face of shock that John Parsons had when I wore the shirt on his episode. He said, Alex, I don't think I've ever seen you in a collared shirt. You seem to be a fan.
I'm a huge fan. I didn't know that anybody made a shirt. In all seriousness, when we came on pre-show, I said, this is ridiculous. You've never looked this good, Gruskin. How in the world? And where is my shirt? I want the Ellesse folks, please. Gruskin's not the only one here at Crack Rackets. I need my shirt. That is a beautiful shirt. And how have they put it on you and made you look good is beyond me.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I could see you wearing this shirt. I actually think I said this on the previous show. I could see you wearing this shirt while you're going on one of your bike rides and just cranking away in this. Like, this is the Chris Halioris riding shirt moving forward. And we'll talk to our guys at Ellesse to see if we can get you hooked up. But look, it's the hooded sweatshirts, it's the collared shirts, and everything in between. If it's got the Ellesse logo on it, you know you're going to look stylish in it. You can learn more about Ellesse by clicking on the link in the description to this podcast. Of course, a massive shout out as well to our friends at SwingVision. They're at the forefront of all artificial intelligence technology innovations happening within the sport. I could tell you about them, but it won't do it justice. Simply put, click on the link. Download the app. You'll have access to everything there. State-of-the-art replay system within the app. You'll also have access to, again, all of their footage. So much more. Learn more by clicking on the link in the description to this podcast. Use that promo code CRACK20 when you do get it to let them know we sent you there. You'll get $20 off plus a free 14-day pro trial as well. Shout out to our friends at Ellesse. Shout out to our friends at SwingVision. Shout out to the weekend ahead. It's going to be a very fun weekend of action in Chicago. The Division I Men's National Indoor Championships upon us. Let's start big picture before we get into any of the matchups. And we'll go through chronologically in case some of you listeners listening to this in podcast form want to skip ahead to your team of preference. But we start big picture. Ultimately, Ohio State the 1, Kentucky the 2, TCU the 3, Michigan the 4. You have Virginia sliding in at that number 5 spot. Now, South Carolina is the 6. I thought they were a pretty clear-cut number 6 seed. I think that first 5 order is where things are most fascinating. Of course, as you look a little bit further down the seeds, things do get very, very interesting. Ultimately, it's Georgia at that 11 spot. You see ultimately in the number 12, it's Tennessee. 13 goes to Stanford. 14, you have a obviously very dangerous Baylor team. 15, Florida. 16, Illinois. Your thoughts on the seeding? Who has the biggest gripes to pick with the committee?
I don't know that there's a lot of gripes.
I agree with you.
It's pretty close to what we thought. And the places where we thought there could be a little bit of leeway, there was. I mean, you could have made an argument. I mean, Kentucky can't argue that they get the 2. A couple of those close matches with Louisville and Duke, you go, would I have felt horrible if they put TCU and Michigan in front of them? No. Do I feel horrible with them at the 2 spot? No. I mean, I think that's all right. That was one area I think that was a little questionable. I thought they might actually get South Carolina all the way up to 5 instead of 6, just because of what Virginia, has or hasn't done lately. But still, no qualms there. I don't really think anybody has any big gripes from a seeding perspective. I think it's pretty well done.
The only one that would perhaps have an argument is Michigan, who gets wins over USC, over Harvard, over NC State, over Tennessee. They get their wins over win over Northwestern in the kickoff weekend as well. There's more, the win over Baylor on the road too. Don't want to forget that one. There's more depth to their body of work perhaps than Kentucky, who, to your point, gets good wins over Duke, over Louisville. They go on the road. They beat Virginia as well. And that's the big one. You go on the road, beat the number one team. You're without Liam Draxel. Yes, Virginia was without Chris Rodesh and no Barbatzer in singles, but that victory matters. And the weight of that win, obviously Michigan gets the win Monday over USC as well, but the weight of that Virginia win clearly carries the day. And to your point, Michigan has an argument. I think Kentucky also has a very strong claim to that number 2 seed. I would also put TCU's body of work. I mean, again, it's a pretty clear-cut top 4. TCU belongs in that discussion. I would probably have them at 2 or 3, again, with their body of work on the road at North Carolina, on the road at Tennessee, what they've done at home as well. They've racked up some good wins early and then go on the road at Baylor too. I think directionally things are correct. Again, Virginia, South Carolina, flip a coin. You could say South Carolina has the more immense body of work, but 5-6, I don't think there's that big of a difference between those two. I agree. I think directionally they got things pretty accurate. Now, I do also want to claim there's no doubt Ohio State should be the number 1 seed. No doubt about that. I mean, what the Buckeyes have done going on the road at Virginia, on the road at Wake Forest, at home against Texas, Texas A&M, Baylor, they are a clear-cut number 1 seed, and there's no doubt they should be in that top spot heading into this event. But no, I like all the matchups. I think they're all going to be good for different reasons. I'm sure some coaches are like, do you guys mind if we just switch Georgia and Baylor? Do you mind if we switch, I don't know, Kentucky and Illinois, just so we don't have Kentucky and Florida, Illinois and Florida, just so we don't have conference direct matchups, just to make everything a little bit nicer for all of our lives. But competitively, it feels very accurate. Final word goes to you.
Yeah, I'll say, seeding, no issue. I think from a gripe, and not a gripe because of the seedings, but just sort of, wow, we kind of got the raw end. I will say Michigan for sure, because it was pretty clear. We knew Illinois was going to be the 16. We knew Florida was going to be the 15. Pretty confident Baylor was going to be the 14. Then it got questionable at who comes next. So that 4 seed for Michigan, when you're looking at the 4, whoever of those 2, 3, 4 drew the 4 was likely to get a much more dangerous match than the other 2. And that's exactly what happened. Stanford, a very dangerous team, much more so than those other matchups, I think. And so, yeah, Michigan, again, they can't really gripe per se. It's fair. But yeah, they drew the short straw in terms of getting that tougher first round match.
I don't know, an experienced Tennessee team at this indoor event, they're really tough. Obviously, you don't want to have to play Baylor twice in a week. That's always just a tough thing for any team to do. Again, it's a good draw. I think we're going to have a fun weekend of action ahead. It's going to be a very balanced round of 16. And with that in mind, let's get into it. Let's run through all 8 of our round of 16 matchups. We're going to go chronologically. We'll start with the higher seed in each hour. That means starting with the 9 a.m. Central Time hour and with the defending national indoor champions. It's the TCU Horned Frogs, the number 3 seed. They enter this event 9-0 overall on the season. They take on conference foes Baylor in a rematch of a matchup we saw just about a week ago. Baylor, a 4-1 win in that battle in Waco. TCU takes TCU a 4-1 win in that battle in Waco. They take a toughly contested doubles point, clinch it at the number 1 spot with Famba and Fernley. They get straight set wins from Famba and Fernley at the 1 and 3 positions. Sebastian Gorsny ultimately with the clinch at 5. Of course, the big note in that match was the announced eligibility of freshman Jack Pennington Jones, who came from the couch, drives to Waco, hops into the singles lineup, lost to Teddy Perilek. And for what it's worth, looking at the matchup here this week, we do see a couple of changes in the lineup for Baylor. They now have Marko Milutinovic at the number 2 spot. Finn Bass, who didn't play against Ohio State yesterday, he's listed at 3. For these TCU Horned Frogs, they go with Fernley at 1, Luke Famba at the number 2 spot, Pennington Jones at 3, then Sander Jong 4, Gorsny 5. Now, Jirosek's listed at 6, but whether it's Vives, whether it's Maxted, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of different looks throughout the course of the weekend. Let's start with the higher seed, 3rd-seeded TCU. Your thoughts on their lineup, their pathway to 4?
I mean, look, only played one match for JPJ. So, and his first one, obviously a lot of nerves, but to have a guy like that, who's 500 and something in the world ATP, come in and, I think he is 5 something now, and you've got him at 3, or whether it was Famba at 3, look, that's a ridiculous spot in that lineup. Just the addition of him and the fact that you now get to pick between Jirs. I think the top 5 play regardless, right? I mean, they're going to play the freshman Gorsny. So now it's down to, is it Jirasek? Is it Vives? Is it Maxted? Who cares? This team's stacked. And they have to be, in my mind, well, those top 4 are all favorites. But boy, if Pennington's, gotten his first match nerves out, these guys are going to be tough.
Mm-hmm. When I look for this TCU team, again, wins over Baylor, North Carolina, Tennessee, 9-0 overall. They haven't dropped a doubles point. And on paper, that's where just the depth shines through. I mean, Fernley and Famba, 8-0 on the year. They're playing 2 right now as Jong and Max that are a top 5 team in the country. And, they're 2-3 overall because Gorsny and Vives are 7-1. And they just keep racking up wins everywhere. And so, again, this team has depth. Even without Jack Pennington Jones, you feel like Jirasek, Vives, Maxted, who all succeeded in the bottom half of the lineup last year. Vives clinched the national indoor title for this team in 2023. They have options, and they still don't even know what the best version of themselves are. And, how are we not going to see Pennington Jones in the doubles lineup, right? That's just that's a question you have to have because he is that sort of caliber of a player. I'm fascinated to see what this team does this weekend because they do have all of the pieces. They do have the depth. And the reason I harp on that doubles point is at the women's national indoors, only one team won a match after dropping the doubles point. And it was a team that may have the chance to go down in the history books with the depth and the talent they have. 7 top 30 players in the University of North Carolina who go on to win the event. I'm not saying TCU can't do that, but they're also going to win a lot of doubles points. And good freaking luck finding 4 singles victories against this lineup. So that's to me where the recipe starts, is they win doubles and then they're going to find 3 singles victories. It's just a matter of where. Now, on the Baylor side of things, Chris, you look for this Baylor team. Obviously, the record's not where they want to be, 5-5 heading into the national indoors, although somewhere Michael Woodson's like, well, Virginia was 5-5 last year, how they finished the season. And, again, when you look for this team, it was a rough day in Columbus yesterday. Buckeyes took it to them in under 2 hours. Buckeyes just beat them everywhere. They were without Finn Bass. I do think there are some silver linings, right? It's very clear Zsombor Veltz, Big Z is going to be a very good player for a very long time in college tennis. The lefty has weapons. He's off to a really strong start, 5-1 overall in dual match play to this year. Juan Pablo Mizuchi, who lost 2 dual matches last season. He's already lost 5 this year, but I think he's getting a lot better. Milutinovic lost yesterday, but I think he's playing much better than he did to start last season. And look, Teddy Perilek's held up in the top half of the lineup. You look for Teddy, he's currently 6-1 overall on the year, was up a break in the second after losing the first to Boulay yesterday. This team is good. Are they great? That's the test ahead of them. And look, they played TCU pretty solidly at home. Only lost 2 straight set matches, was competitive pretty much everywhere else, competitive in the doubles. They also know this TCU team. Should they win, what does it look like?
I can't picture that world. I'm not sure.
Okay. You're that certain?
This is tough. I mean, look, and maybe it's just what they need. Their backs against the wall, no expectations, but they're reeling right now. And we may or may not see Finn Bass, as you pointed out. He didn't play at Ohio State. I mean, the guys that have looked good, Teddy and Velch, and I'll say a partial argument that you and I can disagree on Ethan Musa. Now, part of that is he's like, his matches are going to go so long. He's the first guy that's not going to finish. Sure. You know, if we're not playing it out, he's probably not finishing. And so he doesn't have quite as many completed matches in, but yeah. And so you're talking, you know, and Teddy now at 1, Velch, if Finn is pulled at 3 against JPJ, I don't know how you're probably not getting doubles against those guys, but that's what it has to be. I mean, they obviously have to win doubles. They're not taking 4 singles matches against them. And given where they're at, I mean, the 2 best guys in their lineup have been Teddy and Z. So they've got to win. So you got to find doubles. You got to get Teddy and Z and one more. And right now, I'd say the guy best suited to be able to do that is Mizuchi. But if you pull Bass and you got to play him, well, he's at 6, so he's only playing 5. That's a possibility. Going to be a tough match for him against Gorsny if that's the case. But yeah, I think there aren't a lot of pathways for them against this TCU team right now. They just don't look like, you know, they're not in the greatest of form. They're reeling a little. It's a tough go.
I agree with you. I think that's the pathway. Doubles, you get Veltz, you get Paralek, you get an in-form Juan Pablo Mizuchi. Most interesting singles matchup in this one, Chris. What do you turn to? Or you can pick a doubles if you like that too.
You know, what I like is an assumption that Finn Bass gets pulled and it's Velch, who you and I both think is actually the best player on this team. Maybe not JPJ.
Right now, but the highest.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I would say Teddy's probably the best player. I mean, purely right now, if everybody played straight up, Teddy's the best player on the team. I think Z right now is the second best player on this team. By the end of the year, he's probably the best player. I mean, but Teddy can beat anybody on any given day. I mean, he's got firepower. But yeah, I think Velch and Jones from the intriguing factor is probably the most intriguing matchup. The other most intriguing thing to me isn't even a matchup. It's just what the heck TCU is going to do for doubles. Is Jones in double? I mean, he's paired up on the sheet at 4, so he's not in, but you can do whatever you want with doubles. You can substitute all day.
Mm-hmm. No, very fair. All right. Well, with that said, give me a pick.
I'm gonna take TCU. I don't know if Baylor gets, I'll say they get 1 on the board, maybe 4-1 TCU.
All right, let's move on to our next matchup then. It's an all SEC matchup, a matchup you know well. Georgia taking on South Carolina. When these two teams faced off last year, Georgia beat South Carolina 4-3 in Athens. Now, you look for these two teams. Obviously, it's a little bit of a different story heading into this season. You look for this Georgia Bulldog team overall here in 2023. They do come in as the lower ranked seed, the 10 seed, 4-3 overall. They did get a good kickoff win over Louisville in that final there. They lost early matches to Florida, to Texas. They also dropped one to USC, but got to go to win over Stanford in that SEC Pac-12 challenge. You look for this South Carolina team. Obviously, it's been a strong start for South Carolina. Comfortable wins for them over Clemson, over NC State. They get a good win at home 4-3 over North Carolina. Went on the road and beat Wake 5-2 this past weekend. Let's start with North Carolina. Again, 8-0 overall. You look for this team, a lot of veterans up and down the lineup. Toby Samuel, who had a huge pro fall in summer. He's 6-1 at the number 1 spot to start the year. You have the veteran Connor Thompson, 7-1 overall, 6-1 at the number 2 spot. James Story, who had a massive freshman year at Memphis, struggled a little bit last year, but he's that player we thought he might be so far through this season. Story, 7-0 overall in dual match play, 6-0 at the number 4 spot. And then again, Beasley, Houle, Lambling, all these guys, we know the pieces. This team's 17-2 in doubles individual sets so far this season. It's a really good South Carolina team. What's their pathway to victory here against Georgia?
This is one where almost every single match on the board here could go either way. This match screams possibilities of 4-3 just because you have no idea what's going which way. They both can play good doubles. I feel like you got to give an edge to South Carolina in the doubles. And the lineups to me are so similar now that we've gotten the switch from Georgia, which you and I had talked about, where Teddy Huska had been playing up at 3, Bride's up at 3, Kreuter at 4, and Huska's down to 5. And we get Casey Houle, who has been kind of the up and comer into that spot for South Carolina. Interesting spot. There's interesting matches everywhere. Ethan Quinn hasn't had the greatest of starts, almost all great losses, but they're all good matches. I mean, every single one of these could go either way. Both question marks at 6. The top 4 we know pretty well from both sides. It's just a tough one to call. I mean, I don't feel good about calling any individual match really in either direction here.
Lambling Bride going to be a rematch. Lambling 6-4 in the dual match last year. He beat him. Kreuter Story a rematch. Kreuter 6-2 in the third. He beat Story in the duel last season. South Carolina's played really good doubles. It starts for them all weekend long. If they're going to make noise, it's going to be because they're up 1-0, and it's going to be hard for any team to find those 3 singles victories. Flip side, you look for this Georgia team. They're very calloused up coming into this event. Certainly, they've been through some 4-3 tough scenarios that have gone both for them, against them. You mentioned Quinn already. Again, what are the points you like most for this Georgia team? What will you be watching for?
I mean, Quinn's not playing horrible. He's just not winning these big matches against the top guys, but he's a spot for Georgia that you have to look at. That's a spot we've got to get.
You also just say, what if this is where it starts turning, where it's just like, okay, he's done with the lumps. Now he's ready. We saw it in the fall.
And like we said, it's not like other guys that are meant necessarily playing bad. They're in poor form. Like I would say of guys that have struggled here from a win-loss column, Ethan struggled in the win-loss column. Teddy Huska struggled in the win-loss column. Ethan's losing the top 10 guys in the nation. Teddy's not. I mean, so there's a little difference there. I think it could be exactly that. This could be okay, that's out of the way. And, it's like flipping a coin. I just happened to get the bad run of a bunch in a row, and now it's going to be a bunch of good ones in a row. You got to like him if you're Georgia and you're going to win. I think you've got to look at Kreuter in the 4 spot as a solid one. And then the interesting matches to me, both guys, Lambling and Bride, which Lambling do we get? Which Bride do we get? I have no freaking idea. I mean, that's going to be a match. And then the match at 6, total crapshoot. Again, who do you get? Is it Pena or Paulsell for Georgia? Most likely, I think. I don't think it's going to be a lot of a discussion. I think we're going to see Beasley for South Carolina. But yeah, so tough to call any of the individual matches that I think this is one where I truly the first match we talked about. I don't care who wins doubles. This match, doubles is going to be big.
All right. With that said, what's your most fascinating matchup? Is it that doubles point?
No, because look, South Carolina, if South Carolina loses it, they could still win, but they've been so good at doubles that I've got to give the edge to them. I think to me, the fascinating one is just going to be what happens at the top of what happens with Quinn and Samuel. Samuel has played great. You look at Quinn and think, man, that's a match you got to win, but there's no chance I'm writing Toby Samuel off. That's going to be a good match to watch. And if South Carolina gets out of there with that match, I don't see them losing.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that said, give me a pick.
I think just because South Carolina is so good at doubles and I can't call anything in here individually, I'll take South Carolina 4-3.
All right. I like it. Well, with that said, let's get a little quicker moving forward. Both of us, just so we can, again, do this at a reasonable pace. I know super producer Daniel West still plenty of work to do with the broadcast ahead. Let's move now to the 12 o'clock hour. And let the record show, Chris has yet to predict an upset. You know one's coming at some point, folks. Maybe it's this hour, but will it be with the number 2 seeded Kentucky? This Kentucky team undefeated heading into the national indoors, 10-0 overall. They got the big win over Virginia on the road in that NCAA championship rematch. They got the big 4-3 win at Louisville with Liam Drexel struggling. Then tough 4-3 win at home against Duke. Again, a match where we saw, yes, this team lost 3 set matches at the 5 and 6 position, but guys like, Charlie Kosnet and JJ Mercer and obviously Weeks as well, all getting valuable repetitions. This Kentucky team's taking on a Florida team that obviously they know well in theory, but it's all fresh faces for a 4-3 Florida squad. Wins over USF, Mississippi State in the kickoff weekend. They also beat Florida State, losses in that Pac-12 SEC challenge to 2 good teams in the field, USC, Stanford. But look, we know Axel Neff, obviously he hasn't played at the National Indoor Finals, but has been a top 25 guy for a while. And he struggled of late. I think he's lost 3 consecutively, but we know the level he's capable of. And again, all these pieces we know, we just haven't seen them together that frequently. Bonetto, Grant, Greif, Braswell, Narundorn, Tokic. We saw Orlikowski in play for the first time as well, or at least getting some repetitions. It's a fascinating matchup. Let's start with Kentucky. What are you most confident in about the Cats heading into this?
Just the depth. And for the record, Axel played at the indoors in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
With Notre Dame.
Good call by you.
I only because, we played him and I watched. But for Kentucky, it's the depth in the lineup now that we've seen what they've got at 5 and 6, and those guys, in their tight matches, they needed those freshmen to come up big at Louisville, and that's exactly what they did. They were down 3-2 at Louisville, and that's certainly not a position we expected to see them in, or that they wanted to be in. But the 2 freshmen in Weeks and Kosnet came up and won their matches, and one of them with a break 7-5 in the third for Kosnet. So that's the known commodity for Florida. Just still a lot of unknowns.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's fair. And to your point, we know Lafia, Draxel, Lapadat, Body, what they're all capable of doing in those top 4 positions. And again, it does feel like Weeks, Kosnet have separated themselves, proven to be not just not just legitimate, consider options they have to turn to, but legitimate options at those 5 and 6 spots. And again, I do wonder about the doubles point for this Kentucky team. They've been okay at it so far, but that obviously, again, to just put pressure, have to win 4 victories in singles at this event. That's a really tough line to have to tread. That said, you look at this Florida team. I mean, again, I think it's been a pretty strong start for just about everyone. It's been a little bit up and down for Will Grant at that 2 spot, but Greif has been solid in patches. Jonah Braswell's really stood out, the freshman, 5-1 after his 15-3 fall. Again, Tokats has been solid. Narundorn in a pinch. I still think we haven't seen the best of Bonetto yet, but I don't know. What's the case for Florida here today?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for them. They're not having the best of luck in singles right now. Braswell's been great, and we now see him sliding up to the 3 spot. Bonetto has, frankly struggled a little. Had the good match in the Tennis Channel match for Florida State, or against Florida State, I should say, at the national campus. But they just not a lot going for them in singles yet. Still trying to figure out if Orlikowski is going to make his way in. We do see the freshman Tokac up to 5, Greif down to 6. Greif has been, like you said, he's been good in patches, not great. They're just struggling to find a solid, consistent point. Who's going to get him the point every week? Right now, it's been Braswell, and that's about it. He's the one guy that's been there no matter what. Everybody else in the lineup, from a singles perspective, I think, has had their struggles. And, then pile on top of that, you're not an indoor team. You're playing a team that plays everything indoors up till now. Tough match.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. What's your favorite singles matchup?
Uh, I think in this one for me, I actually like the match at 5 with
Mm-hmm.
Tokac, the freshman for Florida, and Weeks, the freshman for Kentucky. Tokac has actually looked good when I've seen him. Like I said, Braswell's been the best. That's another really good match.
I was going to say that's mine. Braswell
Yeah,
Lapidat.
yeah, Braswell Lapidat. I just think that's going to be a more high profile match for sure. I'm sneakily watching these two guys down at 5 just because they're both freshmen and they both need to contribute and both have done so far. So I think that's another intriguing match. Whether it finishes, I think, is another question.
Mm-hmm. Body Bonetto's not bad either. And
I'll tell you the other thing that's interesting. You brought up the Kentucky doubles point. I'll just point out they have, they haven't been great and they mixed up their doubles. They've been playing a lot of Draxel Iene at 1-dubs, and that's not the case now. They've got Body and Iene together.
And you see Lapidat and Mercer back together after they played a lot of last season, had plenty of success. So that's interesting to see, certainly. All right, give me a pick.
I mean, this is a clear cut Kentucky indoors. They've played a couple close matches, could be susceptible. Florida hasn't shown me anything yet, and they're going indoors. I'll say it's 4-1 Kentucky.
All right, 4-1 Kentucky. Still no upsets for Chris as we move to our 4th round of 16 match, our final on the right side of the draw, final of the 12 p.m. hour. It'll be two blue bloods, two teams we've seen play multiple times, national indoors, NCAAs, these Tar Heels versus Trojans, of course. UNC, the 10 seed, taking on 7th seeded USC. Now, again, this was a 2020 National Indoor Finals match that went the way of the Trojans. You look for this USC team. They suffered their first and only loss of the year at Michigan earlier this week, but 6-1 are the Trojans coming into this event. And, again, perhaps the biggest thing for USC is they've done it all without superstar freshman Lerner Tien, who's listed at the number 3 spot for the Trojans this weekend. Now, again, we've yet to see Tien in action so far this year, but you add him to the mix with a team that has, Stefan Dostanek off to another undefeated start in dual match play. He was unfinished in the 3rd against Styler, a really fun match in that USC Michigan battle. And, then you have a guy like Peter Mock, who's made that sophomore surge. I know he was in a tough one with Fenty at the number 2 spot. Wojtek Merrick's had a really strong start, 5-1 as well. And then again, bunch of people are winning at the bottom of the lineup. Colby lost to Bickerstaff, but he's 5-1 overall on the year. Ludwig got a good win over Bjorn Svensson. He's 3-1 overall on the year. You've just, this team continues to have those same options that it felt like they had last year. And again, we still haven't seen Tien. What have you liked most about the Trojans? What's their pathway here today or in this one?
Yeah, what I've liked most is that everything looks like there's just a lot of upside. They haven't been good in doubles, so you can only go up. They haven't had Lerner Tien in the lineup, and they've been great in singles. Probably can't get a whole lot worse. I think it's big upside. I think this match to me is one of the more intriguing ones because they've been so good in singles. We've seen them come away from indoors with a title, right? Even in Wisconsin. But traditionally, you're going to say North Carolina's playing a lot of indoors, USC not. I think it makes it very intriguing. And this North Carolina team that you don't really know a lot about because you've got guys that have just come over, most notably guys like Poling and Sagerman coming over from Princeton, Logan Zapp, who has not, we just haven't seen in a while. There's a lot of intriguing factors in this match.
No, I think for this USC team, here's the thing. If they have Tien, now they have real depth. Now, again, one of Westrate, Fry, and Colby and,
yep.
All these different guys, even Merrick, probably one of those guys is sitting. And those are all legitimate, guys who have proven their worth in top 6s of lineups. And, so far they've been okay in doubles. Not great. I think that is something they'll have to work on and hopefully have some success in throughout the course of the weekend if they want to make another deep run. But to your point, This North Carolina team's fascinating, and you look for the Tar Heels. They're 6-2 overall in this season. Their losses 4-3 at South Carolina, 4-3 at home against TCU, where they were up a set in 4-1. Ultimately, that match flips in 3 sets. TCU takes it 4-3. Cernak, Segerman are as good of a top two as you'll find in the country. They may lose, but they're not going to lose in less than 3 sets. Like, those two guys are doing battle. And then again, whether it's Lee, whether it's, Watani, to your point, Polling's had a really strong start, 5-1 overall to his season, the transfer over from Princeton. This team's really solid. They're 12-5 in doubles, good, not great. But again, they've played competitive doubles points against everyone. These two teams are just like your definition of good versus good. This is a very big roll the balls out sort of match. Where do you feel most confident about for the Tar Heels?
It's hard. Well, in this particular matchup, I mean, to me, actually, it's the 2 spot, and especially indoors. Segerman hits a huge ball, and indoors, that's going to be tough. Cernak obviously is solid, but at 1, and all of a sudden, hey, guess what? First match, you get Steph, the one of the top 5, if not the number 1 guy in college. That's that's going to be a tough match. I'm just intrigued to see what happens. Are we going to see Logan Zapp? But it's the team that I think is probably for most people watching, that they haven't seen him. You haven't seen the Princeton guys play for them this year. You haven't seen Logan Zapp. We don't know what we're going to get out of them. It's very, very interesting. There's just too much known on the USC side, I think, right now to pick against them, but golly, it's very easily ripe for an upset.
Your best matchup?
I don't want to say Cernak and Steph, but like you said, Cernak's going 3 with everybody. It probably is. I just hate always picking the number 1. I have to lean to the fact, just because we haven't seen him yet, that we probably don't see Leonard Tien. So
yeah, if we do see him, he becomes the must watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I was to say, if he's in the lineup, then, and I'll be honest, I haven't even watched Will Jansen play, so I don't know what I'd be getting into. That's the match I'd be watching is Tien and Jansen.
I would say Poling Merrick. Carl Poling's been really good this year, as has Woj. That's very much a swing match. And again, indoors, maybe you lean Poling, but let's find out. Let's roll the balls out and play. With that in mind, give me a pick.
I don't know how I pick against USC. My gut tells me I should pick the upset here. Carolina indoors, probably no Tien, but if Tien plays, definitely I'm making USC the favorite. USC not been great in doubles. I think Carolina might have a slight edge there, but it hasn't even mattered yet to USC. They still come away with the singles matches. I say they come away with the singles matches that they need again, and they do it. It may be a 4-3 match, but I'll go Trojans.
All right. So once again, it's a clear cut, no upset, right side of the draw for Chris Halioris. That's right. Never far from the listed UTR. I should say never again will he pick against the WTN. We're adding that moving forward because we have a new sponsor, of course, as it relates to college tennis. But all right, let's move over to the left side of the draw. We move to the 3:30 p.m. Central Time portion of play, and let's go now to the number 4 seeded Michigan Wolverines. This Michigan team, 10-0. They've answered every question that's been asked of them. Again, wins over USC, Tennessee, Baylor, NC State on the road. They beat Harvard. They beat Northwestern. They've been battle tested, and you look for this Michigan team, 38-6 in singles, 19-3 in doubles. Again, the Northwestern match was closer than that. The Harvard match was closer than that. Baylor match was closer than that. Even the USC match was closer than those gaudy statistics would indicate, and yet they've gotten through every challenge. This is a very experienced team, 1 through 5, and Maloney 6-0. Gavin Young 6-0, Styler 6-1, Fenty 6-1, Bickerstaff 5-1. The horses have come through for this Wolverines team. You contrast that with a Stanford squad that obviously has dealt with a bunch of injuries. And this 5-2 Stanford team doesn't have the Nishesh Basavareddy from the fall. He's not able to swing through that backhand given the issues with his wrist. Still, Ferry, 5-1. Basing, 6-1. Banerjee, 5-1. The big guns that we expected on their lineup, they have come through thus far for this Stanford team. And while there are still some questions in the bottom of their lineup, Chaudhry's played better. Kolazinski started to get some wins. We still don't know with those two and Rajesh what exactly they'll do, although for what it's worth this weekend, the lineup is Basavareddy 4, Chaudhry 5, Kolazinski 6. I mean, again, here's the thing. For the Stanford team, Ferry, Basing, for it certainly, they're not intimidated by Fenty, Maloney, Styler. Like, pound for pound, those guys have had just as much success as those Michigan duo has. They can match that strength at the top of the lineup. That said, you look for this Michigan team. What's the recipe, Chris?
Well, doubles for sure. I mean, in this matchup in particular, Stanford's not been good at doubles, right? The matchups in Florida with both Georgia and Florida, they lost both doubles points to not even particularly great doubles schools. Michigan's got to take doubles. You have to you got to like everything in that lineup other than right now because of the missing Nino Ehrenschneider. Whether you're throwing Swenson or Cooksey out at 6, moderate success for them. I mean, that's the one spot they've been mediocre at. Everybody else has been good. I mean, just flat out good. So if you're Michigan, you're rolling your die. You're going, hey, we take dubs. We take 3 of the top 5 singles. And still got a great shot at 6 as well, but you feel really good about that. And they've got some tough competition on the other side. And so we'll get into, what are those intriguing matchups, but boy, it's going to be tough to, and again, indoors, it's going to be tough to be able to take dubs. And for Stanford to find 4 singles matches here when they're going to be a little outmanned at 5 for sure. And probably 6 as well. That's tough.
Yeah. I mean, look, Gavin Young's taken a leap, 6-0. He's one of those guys, and I think he will be ready to play perhaps the number 1 spot for the Wolverines next year. But to your point, Maloney, Fenty, Styler, they're back. Bickerstaff, him at 5 is a joke. This Michigan team has real depth. They've played like it so far this season. You're right. They've got answers everywhere. That said, again, Ferry's been as advertised. Basing is top 20 good, and Banerjee indoors, like, he's starting to find his rhythm. Nishesh is still Nishesh, and he's hopefully getting healthier every single day. Stanford can match the horses. Like, if Ferry has a good day, he's going to beat Fenty at 1. If Basing has a good day, he might beat Maloney at 2. Like, that's the thing for this Stanford team is their best days allow them to compete with anyone.
Yeah, and I think that's the path for the sure. Most likely path for them is we're still going to drop doubles and we're just going to sweep the top 4. And okay. I mean, that's their best shot, honestly.
Mm-hmm. What about 6?
I mean, there's a chance. I mean, it's questionable.
Who do you play? Do you go Chaudhry, Rajesh, Kolazinski? What are you doing?
I mean, I think we're going to end up seeing Chaudhry. I mean, they've got Chaudhry 5, right? So obviously he's not 6. He can't be. So I think we see Chaudhry 5. I think they're going to play Kolazinski. I mean, you can play whatever. It's irrelevant what you submit. I think we end up seeing Kolazinski there. But yeah, it's a pick 'em, if you will, for me between their 6 and the Michigan 6 right now. That's a match that could go either way. But if Stanford's on, the top 4, are good. Now, obviously, you don't know what you're getting out of Nishesh, but that's probably your spot is the top 4. And if it's not one of them, then you got to get 6 and you lose one of the top 4.
All right. Well, then with that said, what's your most intriguing singles matchup?
There's only 2 that I even want to watch in this match, and that's Gavin Young and Nishesh for sure. And I want to see what Nishesh has got. And given that he's probably slicing all the backhands, is Gavin patient enough and not forcing it to just bide his time and do his thing? And then the match between Maloney and Basing. That's that's probably from a just pure, let's see high level tennis. I think that's the one we're going to see.
That's my pick. I mean, I'm all in on that match. That is going to be Max Basing is freaking good. And I'm just saying, if you haven't watched him yet, take the time to do so. It's going to be fun to see how he responds to the energy, the weaponry of Maloney. I think that match is going to be fascinating. Give me a pick.
I can't get away from Michigan here. I do think, and Stanford doesn't get dubs. I think they get a point from Ferry on the board. That may be it before the match is over. I'll go 4-1 Michigan.
All right, 4-1. Chris still not a single upset on his board. Then let's move to the second of the 3:30 p.m. Central Time matches. University of Virginia taking on Tennessee. This is an NCAA semifinal rematch. Now, this Virginia team, 7-2 overall, 4-3 loss to Kentucky at home, 4-1 loss. They took the doubles, but Ohio State takes it to them in singles, and we'll talk about that Buckeye team in a little bit. Still, 7-2 overall. The big guns are the big guns. Rodesch, 5-1. Von der Schulenburg, 7-0. Montez, 5-0. Getz, 7-2. He lost 7-6 in the third against Kentucky. It was not a bad loss by any stretch of the imagination. What are they going to do with the bottom of the lineup? Kiefer's been solid, 3-2 overall. Dahlberg, 2-2. Freshman working his way in. Botzer, 2-0. We just haven't seen him a ton in singles, though he and Rodesch, 4-1 at the one double spot. Obviously, it's the indoors. You imagine we'll see a bit more of Barr than we have thus far. That said, again, they still got to figure out what do they want to do at 5-6 moving forward. It's a very good Virginia team. They're taking on a Tennessee team that has not had the start they were looking for. Tennessee 6-3 overall, losses to Michigan, Wake Forest. They survived that kickoff weekend thriller against Oklahoma, but drop a tough one at home against TCU 4-1. And again, looking overall right now for this team in doubles, they're, I believe, pretty good at the one spot. You know, Monday and Harper have found their form. They're 4-0 overall. They're 6-1 collectively at the number 3 double spot, though they did drop that one to TCU. Again, the question is, what's the singles lineup going to look like? Monday right now, he seems to have solidified his spot at number 1, 5-1 overall on the year. But beyond that, Diaz at 6, 5-1. You feel like they know the corners, but Bicknell, Hud, Mitsui, Prada, Kozlov, where does everyone else fit between? Again, plenty of questions still for each of these teams coming into this one. Let's obviously start on the Virginia side of things. Defending NCAA champs, they came here, they beat Florida first round of the National Indoors last year, or no, they didn't. Texas beat Florida. They played them in a thriller, though, at the last round of the National Indoors last year. Still, this team didn't find its form till post-indoors. What do you expect from this more experienced group?
I expect that one day I'm going to get you to say the word Sneakergate. That's that Florida-Virginia match from last year. And we did, by the way, there's a comment in the chat asking about the lineups and where to see them. You listen to us. That's where you get them.
Yeah, good answer.
We're doing the coverage. We know what we have them. The question was, are you just going off last match? No, these are the lineups submitted. They're not out there for the public. Listen to us. We tell you what they are. Otherwise, you just wait for the weekend.
Well done by you, Chris, addressing the listeners. Thank you for that. And by the way, Sebastian Weil, I see those Illinois updates in their matchup. They're taking on Georgia today. We're going to talk about Illinois in a second, so give me an update as soon as we get to that Ohio State-Illinois match, please, because that is a very relevant decision, and I appreciate those updates. I'm not ignoring them. I'm just trying to stay. I was filibustering as 2-3 sets. Two-third sets going to decide that Illinois up 3-2, but carry on, Chris.
Yeah, so now I've even lost track of your question for me.
No, again, for Virginia, it's doubles 1, 2, 3, or 4 doubles and 3 of the top 4.
Yeah, doubles and 3 of the top 4 because, like you said, we don't know what we're seeing. Is Barr playing? Kiefer? Honestly, you said he's been okay. I don't think he's been very good. The big matches, he's not been good and not winning anyway.
3 sets, again, I think he's been fine, not good, but fine.
It's a tough spot. Dahlberg who's listed after Botzer at 6. Yeah, I just don't know. I would think we need to see Botzer. But Dewey is another question. So I think that's the clear path for Virginia is yes, get doubles, get 3 of the top 4. that's your path. It's not the only way. Obviously, you can get a win out of any of those guys, especially if you got Barr playing 6. But I think that's the clearest of paths for them.
Let me just say this Virginia team feels very 2019 Wake Forest-esque in that it's like, okay, Gojo, Barr, Petros, one more. This team's like, okay, 3 of Von der Schulenberg, Montez, Rodesh, Getz, find one more. And that's not a slight on the rest of the lineup. We just still have questions about that rest of the lineup right now. And that Wake Forest team made national indoor finals and NCAA finals. I'm fascinated to see this Virginia team compete. I'm really excited to see them play a Tennessee team that they just haven't gotten up yet for the biggest matches, but then they did against Oklahoma. And this group is ready for Chicago. Like, they've all been through that ringer before. I guess Blaise Bicknell to some extent has it, but obviously he was part of an NCAA championship run. If they're ever going to turn up the Jets, it's now. And the Monday Harper team at 1, that's just a damn good team. Like, that team is going to be in position to perhaps give them half a point in anything they play. Will they make a decision to go Hud Mitsui at some point at that number 2 spot? We know what those two are capable of. We haven't seen them play together much this season, but right now they're submitted at the number 2 spot. I love that decision. Get back to the big guns. And then what will they do at 3? We'll still have to find out, but I like the change. I like the aggressiveness. I like that they're trying to work Prada back into the lineup, because I do think the best version of this team involves a healthy and playing well Martin Prada. Look, they now have no pressure coming into this, Chris. So I ask you, what's their pathway here?
I mean, the pathway, I think, for them starts with doubles. I'm not sure. I like the teams they've got at 1 and 2. I have no idea. They put all the strengths together, and that leaves 3 as who knows. I don't even know that Diaz and Rodriguez or Kozlov and Bicknell have played a match together this year. The stat sheet shows 0-0 for both teams. So Lord knows what we see at 3 dubs. But those 2 teams, but Monday Harper and Mitsui and Hud are 2 very, very seasoned doubles teams that could easily win you a doubles point. So I think that, you've got to get that. If you're Tennessee, you like your chances with Monday against anybody. Bicknell, look, he just hasn't been good this year. They've got him up at 2. I don't think they're counting on anything. And that's a strong spot with what Virginia has submitted indoors with the big guy in Rodesh at 2. That's going to be a tough spot for Bicknell, I think. I'm not counting there. Mitsui, wow, that to me, that's what a match right there. Mitsui Von der Schulenberg.
That's it. That's the one.
That is clearly the marquee match in singles. Mitsui and Von der Schulenberg. That's the one you got to watch. And if you're Tennessee, that one's got to go your way. Emil Hud indoors, you got to get him too. So you're going, hey, we need Monday, we need Mitsui, we need Hud, we need doubles. If you get something out of Prada or whoever you play at 6, that's a bonus.
Diaz at 6 is 5-1 this year. You're telling me him versus a Dahlberg, a Botzer, a Kiefer, whomever it is, like, come on, they can win that one.
Oh, they can. Absolutely, they can. I'm just saying I think, if you're counting on your strengths and what is there, yeah, those you're looking at those other guys, but absolutely they could win a match look, and if they actually play, say, Kiefer at 5, whether it's Prada or whether it's Kozlov, but one of those guys can beat Kiefer as well. I just feel a lot more confident in saying, hey, Monday, Mitsui Hud, go get it done.
Bicknell hasn't been great indoors, and he's never been an indoor guy, but he got the big win over Oklahoma, and I think or did he win that match? He lose it in 3. I forget what it was.
He won. Yeah, they came down to needing.
Oh no, but he played at 3, not 2. That's what it was. Yeah, he
correct.
Won it in 3. It was at the 3 spot. Yeah,
beat Nathan Hahn.
Yeah, I think he's playing better. He's regaining his rhythm. Again, he's been out of college tennis for over a year now. It's a frisky match, and we said it. Mitsui Von der Schulenberg, so much athleticism. God, that match is fun. Monday versus Montez, the contrast in size, yet the physicality of that one's going to be delightful. It's going to be electric. It's going to be really fun. Fun colors on the court as well. Chris, what's your pick?
I look at it this way, Gruskin. You're not letting me out of here with no upsets. The 8-9 doesn't count. I sure as hell ain't picking Illinois, so...
Wow. You're going with the Volunteers. Give me
Go
the calculus.
Vols. Yeah, I it's going to have to be, like I said, my best chance, I think, is Dubs 1-3-4, but I just don't like the spot at 2 against Rodez.
Wow.
They've, like you said, they've got nothing to lose. If they're going to if they come out of here and they go 1-2 or 0-3 at indoors, I'm all but writing them off for the season. They've got to turn it around, but there is no pressure, like you said. Look, they're seated way down low. They haven't come in well. These guys have nothing to lose. If they're going to turn it around, this is the time. And why not doing it against the defending national champions?
We needed that. 56 minutes in, we needed a little pick-me-up. So thank you for that Tennessee upset. That was just a little boost there. There he is. He's on the board. Chris taking Tennessee out of that 3:30 hour. All right, Seb Vial, I need an update, please, on the Illinois match. Taking on Georgia right now as we get to their match next, the 6 p.m. hour. It's Ohio State, 6:30, Ohio State taking on Illinois. Look, this Illinois won, by the way. Illinois win over Georgia. Big one coming into this. There's the big mo, because look, Illinois so far this season, 8-4 overall. They played some good matches. Lost 4-1 at Kentucky, didn't get blown out. Lost 6-1 at Ohio State, okay, but it's at Columbus. 4-0 loss at North Carolina, 4-3 at Duke, but they got tested on the road. Look, they've gotten wins over UCF, Notre Dame over the past week. Now the win over Georgia as well. At the very least, they've seen this Ohio State team here this season. But look, Chris, I'm going to go on a diatribe for a second, a little monologue. I apologize. I've seen a lot of great Ohio State teams over the years, and you look for the Buckeyes. They've won this National Indoor Championship twice. You look at the 2014 team with Cobelt and Diaz and Metka and all the guys they brought on that roster. That was a really good team. 2019, Wolf, McNally, all the way through to Tubert and all the different things that they could do. That was a real Seelig, a really good Buckeye team. Obviously, Buchanan, Rolla, that era, exceptional. Allure, Wilson, Kronagi, Kinyeko. They've had some great teams in Columbus over the years. National Indoor Champions, NCAA finalists. Shout out to Torp. I don't want to forget that 2018 team either with JJ McNally, Torp. What a fun top three. This is the best Buckeyes team I've ever seen. And I don't say that lightly. And you look for this Ohio State team, 11-0 overall coming into this National Indoors. They're 18-5 in dual match play and doubles. 46-3 in singles, and they've been without Cannon Kingsley for wins against Baylor, Wake, and Virginia on the road. Those last two, I just look up and down the lineup. Trotter through 11 team matches, 10-0 overall. Now through 12 matches, they're 12-0 overall. He's 11-0. Robert Cash through 12 matches, he's 10-0. And the leap Boulay made. I watched Anthrop play, and I was like, oh, yeah, he was as good as advertised. There's some J.J. Wolf 0.85 buzz to watching him play, Chris. Trust me, if you see him this weekend, you'll be impressed. Of course, the doubles lineup they bring, even without Kingsley, to have Robert Cash at 2 because you trust Luchanik and Trotter to just get the job done at 1. The experience of this team, they've all been through it. This is not year one. Yes, Bernard and Anthrop are new pieces, but the majority of this group, it's year 3 or year 4 for all of them. This Ohio State team is so freaking good, Chris, and the depth that they have combined with the strength up top, combined with the fact that we still haven't seen the best versions of Bernard, Anthrop, or a healthy Kingsley. I feel better about this Ohio State team than I've ever felt about any Buckeye team. I think they're that good. What say you?
How can you feel bad about a team where JJ Tracy has lost as many singles matches as everybody else in your starting lineup combined?
Yeah, and he's lost 1.
On the overall, whatever they listed, right? He was 13-5, but Boulay, Kingsley, Bernard, Trotter, they've lost a total of, and Cash lost a total of 5 matches. Tracy crazy. 5 on the year.
No, it's Tracy yesterday, an 0-2 win over Miladinovich. Like, yeah, he's fine.
Yeah. It's
he's lost 1 dual match. 1.
Yeah, I mean, somebody in the first 2 days this weekend is going to have to pull the upset of their life to knock them off. I don't even think this gets real for Ohio State until Sunday. I mean, they're going to get Illinois. Sure, they can get challenged. I'm not saying that they won't have some tight matches. They're going to win. They're going to beat Illinois. They're going to beat the winner of Texas and Wake Forest. And then it gets real when they get, maybe a great match with Michigan. Who knows what it will end up being, but that's when it gets real for them. I'm not sure that we can say that about anybody else at this tournament that's been that dominant this year.
Well, the pathways are endless because, again, Cash hasn't lost, Trotter hasn't lost, and to bring them to the bottom of the lineup, Cash moving so well, so aggressive, just his relentlessness indoors, unmistakable. Trotter, the weapons he has, to not have him in the top three of your lineup, that's the luxury they have because, by the way, their top three of Kingsley, Boulay, Tracy, they're all that good right now. Bernard's slowly getting better and better, asserting himself more into the court, and physically, he's a nightmare to face. And then again, one of those guys might not play if they want to play Anthrop or they want to play Luchanik on the right day, and this team's just that good. Now, here's the thing. Illinois, who gets the big win, 4-2 over Georgia. And for what it's worth, this Illinois team takes the doubles point, 7-6 at the third. They get it to clinch over Kreuter and Johnston, and then they get straight set win from Ozalins over Quinn. Wow. Straight set win, although Ozalins has some serious weapons. Straight set win from Raz over Bride, 6-6. Straight set win Miyoshi, straight sets over Yuska. For what it's worth, they played Yuska at 4, Kreuter at 5 in this match. I mean, here's the thing. For Illinois, Brad Dancer's going to have 500 people at this match. There will be a strong Illinois contingent. It will feel like a home match for a team that just beat Georgia. Now they've got a little mojo going into a team that they did see a couple weeks ago in Columbus. We say it's always hard to beat a team twice in one season. Obviously, Ohio State's the favorite. What is the path for Illinois?
I mean, first of all, the only quiet people at that match are the designated drivers. That's a given. That will be a loud crowd. They're going to need something like they did today on steroids, because I just don't know how you do that to Ohio State indoors. They have guys that have upside, like Ozalins, right? But Ohio State.
You know who they didn't play today, by the way? No Alex Petrov today, who's listed at number 1 for them.
But Heck did play?
Heck did play up to the number 2 spot. Okay.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't know how you get it done. I think what this does is it gives them some confidence that, look, nobody expects them or anybody else this early to knock off Ohio State, but we're all looking at circling them and circling probably in the bottom half a team like Florida as, oh, there's your 0-3 teams for the tournament, right? Illinois is now not so easy.
They're not 0-3 this week. You can't do it anymore. They already got a win this week. So literally, they're like, we are not the 0-3 team. I'm sorry, Westop, but they're saying, fuck you, Chris. You knew we were going to say it. You knew you were going to say they're going to be 0-3 this weekend. And now literally that's a message saying, hey, don't you dare call us the 0-3 team this week.
Okay, they could be 1-3. Yeah. But no, yeah, it's not so much, they've just shown, hey, that's not the given. They can beat somebody up there. It's not going to be Ohio State. I don't know. I honestly don't know how they do it, because I don't see a path for them to get 4 points off them. I think they just want to be competitive and then come out day 2 and go and, take their shot then against whether it's Texas or Wake Forest.
Best match? Ozalins versus anyone. I'll answer it.
I mean,
Carlos Ozalins. He's got weapons. He can play.
And and we don't know. Well, actually, they've submitted Kingsley at 2 anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So he's playing Boulay. Whether Cannon's in or not, well, I guess it depends on whether Petrov plays. But yeah, I'll go with that for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. All right, what's your final score?
Ohio State 4-0.
I'm saying at least 4. It's got to be at least 4-1. Come on, after the Georgia, the home element. Come on.
It's a big high to come down from.
All right, that's fine. 4-0, he said so. Well, then our final round of 16 match might be the most fascinating. Texas versus Wake Forest. You look for this Texas team. Obviously, only lost 1 match so far this year, 7-1 overall. They got smoked in Columbus, but good wins for them over Arizona, Pepperdine, Cal, Georgia so far, Florida so far this season. They have been tested. And look, we were wondering about a couple of things. How real was Elliot Spizzirri's fall? Well, he's 6-0 at the number one spot in dual match play. He's the number one player in the country. He is that good. We were wondering how real was the bounce back from Siem Waldie. Well, he's 7-1 in dual match play to start this season. He is back to his top form. And then, again, Cleve Harper, who's always been rock solid at the bottom of the lineup. He's 5-1 to start this season. And the question is, how healthy is this team? How healthy is Pierre-Hervé Bailey, the superstar sophomore? Micah Braswell, 3-3 so far this year as the superstar junior. Again, if those guys are healthy, we know how good the six singles in this Texas roster can be. For what it's worth, Harper, Spizzirri, 6-2 at the number one spot. They continue their success from the fall. This team's still looking for pieces at the bottom of their lineup in doubles, but they're facing a Wake Forest team that's 11-2 overall, and I still feel like I know nothing about this team. And looking for Wake Forest, Melios Efstathoglu, the one veteran we know very, very well, he's 7-1 to start the season. You're just getting a marathon versus him, whether it's at the one spot, the two spot, you know what you're facing. Filippo Moroni had a really good season last year. He's capitalized on that form. He's rock solid all around. He's a guy make you work. 7-3 to start the year as Moroni. But you look for this Wake Forest team, they've already played 11 different guys in singles. And outside, I know Efstathoglu, I know Moroni's going to play. I think I'll see Karamov, 6-2 on the year. I think I'll finally see Tachi, who's real, 7-2 overall in the year. Thompson's 10-1. But are we going to get Bozo Baroun? Are we going to get Juan Ascana de Lopez? Are we going to get any of the other players on this Wake Forest roster? Who exactly are we going to see in doubles as well? Question marks. Now, again, I've said it. I think this is Tony Bresky's best coaching job to date, and this is a guy who's won a national freaking championship. Let's start on the Texas side of things, Chris. What's your biggest question mark? What are you looking for?
Biggest question mark is 6. Not even. I don't even know that.
For the record, they are 3-3. Nevin's 1-0. Chi-Chi's 1-1, McDonald's 1-2.
Yeah, just nothing. Nothing so far at 6. So I don't care who it is. It's what do they get from that spot? Because it's frankly not a particularly strong spot on the Wake Forest side. So it's a match that I expect to be competitive, and you just got to pick the right guy on the day. I think that's the biggest unknown. Everybody else in the top 5. We know, those are the guys we know the most about in this match. Spizzirri, Bailey, Braswell, Waldie, Harper. There's no questions in there, if you will. A lot more questions for us on what we see from the Wake Forest side. But yeah, for Texas, it's that. And then honestly, can they get a doubles point in a match that matters here? I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to find out. Now, again, for this Wake Forest team, 11-2 overall, wins over Tennessee, a win over Auburn, a win over Middle Tennessee. They play tough matches against both Ohio State and South Carolina. They're good. They are good. And you never know where the points are going to come from, but they could come from anywhere. What do you feel most confident in about this team so far, Chris?
I hate to say confident, but I've liked 2 through 4.
Okay.
I think they're in a tough spot where they don't. Melios can battle with anybody and probably make it go unfinished if that doesn't come down to him. But it's not a great spot, and it doesn't matter to me who they put at the one spot. It's a tough spot. They don't have a classic 1, if you will, so they're going to be the underdog at 1. But whoever the leftover guy is between Melios, Moroni, Tachi, and Karamov, those are your clear top 4. And whoever ends up being 2 through 4, I like a lot. They've been really good. Thompson has been good at 5. I still have to see it against these top teams 3 days in a row now to really become a believer. This is the weekend that's going to either make me go, yeah, I see they really weren't there all along, or I'm a firm believer now. If they show me something at 5 and 6 3 days in a row, I'm going to sit on the fence right now and say, until they show me, I don't believe. So I think they're going to need everything they can get out of those, 3 of the top 4 plus dubs. Now against Texas, 6, great spot, because you don't know what Texas has got at 6. So that's always a possibility. And I think that's Lopez for Wake Forest. I mean, they didn't submit him there, but that's who we've been seeing a lot of. That's what I would expect to see.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, I think the match of the match, hey, great shot, is Thompson versus Cleve. Like, you want to know how good Thompson is? Beat Cleve freaking Harper at the 5 spot. Then we have to take you seriously.
Yeah, I believe if you could do that. That's right.
Yeah, very well said. So that's my match of the matchup. What do you have?
I honestly, I want to see. I've not watched a lot of Karamov this year. I saw a fair amount last year. I want to see a really focused CM Waldeeb. So I'm going to watch the match at 4 between Waldeeb and Karamov. And because to me, that's the match. I know Spizzirri, Bailey, and Braswell are going to battle. Waldeeb's the one that I always go, man, if it gets going the wrong way, it's erratic and weird things happen. I want to see him. If he's focused, they're a dangerous team. That top 5 is very, very good. And that's why they've only lost 1 match. And look, everybody's lost to Ohio State. So I'll write that one off.
I really like that point. Well, then with that said, let's get to it. Give me the pick. They lost to South Carolina, by the way, as well last week, but carry on.
Good point. I think because of all of just the unknowns, I feel really good about the top 5 for Texas. I don't feel great about their doubles, but the singles are so strong. I think they find a way to get it done. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it will be an absolute battle, but I will go Texas, and I'll say it finishes 4-2.
All right. With all of that said, then, folks, that's your look at the round of 16. And of course, I will drag Chris every night out of his slumber to podcast with me to recap all the action. It's one of my favorite pastimes. I actually think those are the podcasts that get goofiest and most enjoyable. Chris, you and I,
at least it's not West Coast where I'm doing it at 2 a.m. with you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then let me ask you these last 3 things. First of all, over under. Scotty B says 4.5 matches. That's too many. Over under 2.5 for 3 matches on day 1.
Under.
Okay, he's taking the under, Scotty B. Next question. The question, well, I'm going to hold that question. Next question is actually a statement. Going into these national indoors, how do our rankings differ from the ITA seating? Let's bring that up now. We do have our Cracked Racquets top 10 poll here this week. We have Ohio State number 1, TCU number 2, Michigan 3, Kentucky 4, Texas 5, USC 6, UVA 7, South Carolina 8, Wake Forest 9, UNC 10. So slight differences, I suppose, between us and the seating committee. Still directionally, everything still feels pretty accurate. Question number 2, what's your biggest disagreement, or what do you like most about our top 10?
I think Texas is too high, but I won't argue too much. That was probably my biggest. I think everything else in there.
2 wins over Arizona, a win over Florida, over Florida, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I can't really argue it. I mean, I think I have the top 4 exactly the same, and then probably 8 through 10 exactly the same. And I'm just a little shuffled differently in 5, 6, 7. But yeah, I mean, hard for me to argue. It does feel like, and I'll feel bad if I look back and I put Virginia 7, but it does feel a little low for them. But they haven't been outstanding lately.
They just don't have the signature wins the others do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair. But then finally, the last question I will ask for you on today's show, Chris, the 2023 men's national indoor champions will be.
I really want to pick TCU, but I'm going Ohio State.
Yeah, make the case.
I mean, they've been so dominant. I don't care if it's been at home. They've gone on the road too. They're so good. And when you've got, in the past, it's been to me a little more questionable at the bottom when we've, even last year, is Cash playing 6? Is somebody else playing 6? And it was Cash has got the game indoors and he likes to come forward. He likes to get to the net, but he wasn't having the success that he's had this year. Another year under his belt. They just look so good. You're playing Trotter at 5. I mean, when the guy that with the least amount of success in your lineup is JJ Tracy, I don't know how you, I mean, obviously somebody can beat them, but they play the event, 100 times. They win more than anybody else.
Yeah, very well said. This Ohio State team is that good. But again, there are a lot of other teams that are that good here this season. And if the women's national indoors was any forecast, it's going to be tightly contested battles everywhere. Of course, the best news, we're going to have coverage from first ball to last on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. Myself, Mike Cation, going to steer the ship all weekend long. Coverage begins Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time. Take you all the way through Monday's championship match. Of course, a shout out, as always, to our super producer, Daniel Westoff, who will be on the ones and twos, makes everything we do possible. A shout out, of course, as well here today to our friends at Ellesse and SwingVision for their support of this deciding point. Again, we hope you join us, college tennis fans. It's one of, if not the best weekend on the college tennis calendar. You won't want to miss it. Those are our predictions. If you want to share yours, at Cracked Racquets, at AL Gruskin, at College Tennis Ranks, let us know on our various social media platforms. With all of that said, for the fantastic Professor, Lean Mean Vegan Machine, Chris Halioris, our super producer, Daniel Westoff, our friends at Ellesse and SwingVision, and from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. Chris, what do we tell our listeners?
Hey, great shot.
And we will see you all this weekend. Thanks, everyone.